Curious to see if the Logitech 4K Pro Webcam is a worthy successor to the older but still excellent C920 series? Thinking about upgrading and wondering if it's worth it? Stick around and find out. What's up, peoples? My name is Daniel Day, and today I'm going to be reviewing the Logitech 4K Pro Webcam, which was previously known as the Logitech Brio. Confusingly, it's the same thing. Look, is it worth the $200 asking price? Will it take your live streams to the next level? And how has it been to use over the past few months since I picked it up? We're going to cover all of that today. But first, a little bit of backstory on why I decided to pick this thing up in the first place. For starters, no matter how much time I spent tweaking settings in OBS, I could never quite get the keying with my Elgato green screen quite how I wanted it. So I watched a bunch of YouTube videos, added enough extra lights into my room that I was basically blinded when live streaming, purchased and installed blackout curtains. But no matter what I did, there was always this shimmer that was always present in all of my videos. It was like a frustrating halo of crap all the way around me and my fancy black and white DX Racer, and it bugged the crap out of me. Now, I'm not a green screen lighting professional nor an expert at videography or photography, but I became convinced, possibly incorrectly, that after doing everything else, the issue was either the resolution of my C920 or the quality of the imaging sensor inside of it. And so the search began for a suitable upgrade. After doing a bit of research, I discovered Logitech's 4K Pro Webcam, and it seemed to check all the boxes. It was newer, so I figured it probably had a better imaging sensor. It recorded in 4K, so it definitely had a nice resolution bump, and I figured, hey, it's on sale right now, and even if it doesn't end up solving my green screen problem at all, I'll still get a higher quality, nicer webcam out of the deal, and if the 4K recordings work well enough, I might actually be able to use it for some of my YouTube videos, like this one, going forward, instead of my 1080p only Nikon DSLR. So with that in mind, I hit the buy button, put together a quick unboxing video for you guys when it finally showed up, and then set out to figure out where this new webcam would fit into my life. Okay, history lesson over, and you might be wondering why I took the time to go through all of that. And the answer is pretty simple. This thing is not a $50 webcam like the C920 that it's replacing. It is a $200 premium device. So anyone that's looking at buying one is probably doing so for a very specific reason. Now, I've shared my reasons for picking one up, but yours may be completely different. Maybe you just like having the best of the best or the newest thing. Perhaps you just want to step up your Skype game, or maybe you're planning on hooking this thing up and using it as a really nice B-roll camera. There really are a lot of uses for small webcams like this, especially one that can be easily mounted on top of your TV or computer monitor and is even small enough to be mounted to an articulating microphone arm. But at $200, it's getting dangerously close to the cost of picking up an Elgato Cam Link the next time it's on sale, along with a cheap camcorder or even an entry-level DSLR. So it really is important to ask yourself, what are you planning on doing with this thing before clicking that buy button? Okay, let's go ahead and get into some of the things that I really enjoyed about the Logitech 4K Pro Webcam, and then we'll touch on a few things that maybe weren't quite as stellar. For starters, the build quality on this thing is great. It features an all-metal and glass design, and it certainly looks a lot nicer than my C920. And it feels great in the hand too. Now, you're not actually probably going to be handling this thing very often once you put it on top of your TV or computer monitor, but it's a nice touch nonetheless. This webcam also features an infrared sensor, which means that it can be used along with Windows Hello to log you into your computer with your beautiful, beautiful face, even in low light situations. Now, this is a feature that not everyone is going to end up wanting to use, but if you're interested in taking advantage of it, it is certainly a nice addition. The Logitech 4K Pro Webcam also runs off of a USB 3.0 Type-C connection, which sounds really modern and fancy until you realize that it's really only the end that plugs into the back of the webcam that's USB-C. The end that plugs into your computer is just a boring old Type-A connection. Now, this really is probably for the best because not everybody has a newer PC that has a whole bunch of available Type-C ports. I just wanted to point it out for clarity though, because some of you that are running newer Macs are probably going to end up needing either a Type-C to Type-C cable or an adapter slash dongle to get everything up and running. Next up, and this is a huge deal for many people, this thing is capable of capturing 1080p at a full 60 frames per second. So if you're super into 60 FPS streaming and you want your face cam to run at the exact same frame rate as your gameplay, and you really want to do all of that with a webcam, this device is a great option and probably exactly what you're looking for. Last but not least, on the positivity front, unlike Logitech's older webcams, this thing actually supports not one, but 3 different fields of view: 65, 78, or 90 degrees, which I actually found to be one of the coolest features personally. So if you've got a large enough room to really take advantage of the full 90 degrees, it gives you an incredibly wide field of view without getting too fisheyed, and it definitely looks impressive when compared to the normal 78-degree field of view that other Logitech webcams offer. Oh, and I forgot to mention that it also comes with a really cool carrying case slash lens cleaning cloth, which is definitely going to come in handy if you're planning on carrying this thing around with you or throwing it in your laptop bag. Okay, on to the less than stellar things. And keep in mind that I'm coming at this from the perspective of someone who bought this to solve the problems that I outlined in the beginning of the video. None of these things may matter to you at all, and if they don't, I wouldn't hesitate to recommend this webcam to you. These were just my problems with it, and some of them may be yours as well, but maybe not. First up, well, this thing can be mounted to a tripod just like its older siblings. The screw hole isn't on the bottom of the stand as it was on my older unit. Instead, you have to basically hulk the entire base off of this thing, which is not for the faint of heart, just to get to the mounting hole. Well, this isn't a huge deal. I do wonder how many folks have picked one of these things up without even realizing that it could be mounted to a tripod or an articulating arm. This process becomes a bit easier after repeatedly taking the stand off and putting it back on, but then that's got me worrying if the little plastic peg that holds the stand on won't eventually just snap off. But maybe that's just me. The webcam featuring 3 different fields of view is fantastic and one of my personal favorite features. But just keep in mind that running it at anything other than the full 90-degree field of view reduces the already less than stellar video quality. This thing is a 90-degree field of view webcam. There are no optical zoom components in it. So if you reduce it to the standard 78 degrees or the less than standard 65 degrees, you're really just digitally cropping the image. If your recording space is smaller, or if you have things on the edge of your field of view that you don't want included in your recording, you're likely going to want to run it at a non-native field of view, which will reduce your video quality. Now, those of you that are planning on using this thing as a face cam while streaming in something like OBS or XSplit would probably be better off just running it at the full 90-degree field of view and then using your streaming program of choice to crop what you don't want off of the sides after bringing the webcam in as a source that way, just to avoid the quality reduction. But those of you that are planning on using this for talking head style full screen videos, you know, like this one, just keep in mind that you're going to be reducing the video quality if you're not running it at the full 90 degrees. Next up, the low light performance on this thing, which is less than stellar. But really, that shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone. It is just a glorified webcam with a super small imaging sensor after all. Want a digital noise-free image? Well, just make sure you got a lot of light, just like any other webcam, and you will be fine. I'm only mentioning this for any of you that are looking at this as an alternative to using a DSLR or mirrorless camera, thinking that because it can record in 4K, it might perhaps be in another class of devices. I guess I kind of thought that myself, if I'm being honest, which is my own dumb mistake. Just let me set the record straight. This is not the case. While this thing is capable of recording footage in 4K at up to 30 frames per second, it is not anywhere in the same league as an entry-level real camera outfitted with a decent lens. But hey, to be fair, Logitech never said that it was. I shouldn't have thought that, and neither should you. Learn from my mistakes, people. And in terms of plug-and-play functionality, weight, price, and ease of use, this thing's got those other types of devices beat by a mile. Next up, and I mentioned being curious about this during my initial unboxing video, if you are going to be using this to capture 4K footage at 30 frames per second, just keep in mind that obviously your computer is going to be put under more stress when doing so. Jumping from capturing around 2 million pixels to over 8 million of them 30 times a second will result in not just larger files if you're recording the video, but also a much larger drain on your other system resources, you know, like your CPU, your GPU, and your RAM. This turned out to be immediately obvious when I added the 4K Pro Webcam into Streamlabs OBS as a source, so just make sure that your PC isn't like barely scraping by if you're planning on streaming with this thing cranked all the way up to 4K. Now, jumping from 30 frames per second to 60 frames per second when using it at 1080p will also result in more resource use. I mean, you are doubling the frame rate after all, but nothing near what you're going to see if you try and bump this thing up to 4K. 4K. Speaking of streaming with this thing, it is worth mentioning that for some crazy reason, the minute that you switch it to any of the 4K modes, and it does have more than one, the video delay goes up substantially, even if you're running it on a very OP desktop like mine. Now, running at 1080p 30 or 60 on a capable PC will result in the video coming in at a smooth pace. I didn't need to delay the external audio coming from my Audio-Technica mic right here by even a millisecond. But then again, I never did with my C920 either. But switching things to 4K resulted in a substantial processing delay with the video, even though I have plenty of system resources to spare. And even after all of these months, software and firmware updates, I haven't figured out a way to correct it. Now, obviously, if you're using OBS or something like that, you can just do some testing, figure out what the exact video delay is, and then add a matching audio delay in to correct the problem. No big deal. And you won't even have to deal with that if you're planning on, for some crazy reason, just using the built-in microphones on the webcam, right? Well, actually, no. See, because it turns out to be not that simple. Because there is such a bad video delay when running this thing in 4K, your reactions are going to be way out of sync with what's happening with your game when streaming. So you're going to have to fix the audio problems first and foremost if you're using an external microphone. And then you're going to also have to delay all of your gameplay on top of that just to sync things up with the webcam all the time, which is going to result in an even bigger workout for your computer. It's just a nightmare. But again, if you're only planning on running this thing at 1080p 60, none of this applies to you and you'll be in good shape. Now, for those of you that aren't planning on streaming with this thing and are thinking about using it for more like YouTube content creation or something along those lines, I just wanted to mention really quickly that this is in fact just a webcam, and it does not as a result provide a constant frame rate signal. It is 100% variable frame rate. Now, you might wonder, why in the world does that matter? Well, you see, to reduce the processing strain on the webcam, this thing does not actually pass through a full 30 frames per second consistently to your computer. So you'd think that if you had a 10-minute long video recording and it was at 30 frames per second, you'd end up with 30 frames a second times 60 seconds, which is 1800. Then multiply that times 10 minutes, you should have 18,000 frames, right? Well, wrong, because this thing doesn't run at a consistent 30 frames per second. So why is that a big deal? Well, it's not if you're planning on using the microphones that are built into the webcam for all of your audio. But if you're planning on using an external microphone to get much better sound quality, it matters a great deal, as your audio recording will not match up with your video recording when you go to sync everything up in post using something like Final Cut Pro, Premiere Pro, iMovie, LumaFusion, etc. Worse yet, it will start out fine and in sync, giving you this false sense of security, and then just gradually get more and more out of sync as you get further into the video. So you'll either end up having to check and correct your audio sync at each and every cut in your video, or run the whole video recording through something like Handbrake to convert it to constant frame rate before even starting editing. This is an extra and time-consuming step that you wouldn't have to do if you recorded your video with something like a DSLR, or really anything that's capable of recording at a constant frame rate. Now, an alternative way to get around this is just to record everything in OBS or Streamlabs OBS or something like that from the get-go, and go ahead and set all of your video recording settings to constant frame rate. Then you can bring that recording into your video editor of choice. I just wanted to mention that for any of you that do end up going this route, as it'll end up saving you a lot of time. Trust me. And last up on my list of gripes, yes, we are getting to the end, is the actual quality of the 4K recording itself. It's fine-ish, I guess. Look, it is certainly sharper than 1080p, no question about that, but it is nowhere near the quality that even my iPhone can capture. It's full of digital noise if your room isn't lit up enough to blind you, the color reproduction is lacking, the HDR implementation isn't even worth using. The loss of quality if you're not using the 90-degree field of view will be unacceptable for most, and you don't have a whole lot of control over things like contrast and brightness using Logitech's software. Oh, and rebooting your computer results in whatever custom camera settings you did tweak to be reset back to default. So you're gonna have to go in and set all those back up again every time you reboot. There's no optical zoom, and all of the audio sync and video delay problems that I mentioned a bit ago really just get in the way of using this thing to record in 4K. But again, it does record in 4K on a webcam, and if that's what you're going for, this is likely still, even with all of my gripes, one of the best options at this price point hands down, as crazy as that is to say. So yeah, you could pick up an Elgato Camlink 4K and a nice mirrorless 4K capable camera, and you would certainly get substantially better results along with a lot more flexibility. But that would come at a much steeper cost, and you would lose some of the easy mounting options due to the additional weight of the camera. And just because that might be right for me, the solution I probably should have broken down and gone with in the first place doesn't mean that it's right for you or your budget. I mentioned at the top of this video that I bought this webcam to solve a few of my specific problems. So did it? Well, if you can't tell already, the answer is no. It didn't end up solving any of my particular problems, and it actually ended up just adding more to the list. But that's my fault. I bought this thing for the wrong reasons, and I thought I should make this video to share my flawed logic with all of you, just to maybe save someone else out there from buying this thing for something it was never made to do. I may find a good use for it at some point. As someone that streams and makes YouTube content, you really can never have too many cameras. So who knows what my future with this thing holds. If you specifically need a webcam and you want it to be capable of 60 frames per second capture at 1080p for streaming, and your max budget is around $200, then this thing really is an absolute delight, and you should totally consider picking it up. If you're only planning on using this webcam for stuff like video conferencing, picking one of these up will ensure that you look fancier than anyone else in the meeting. But if, on the other hand, you, like me, were expecting this to somehow transcend what it is, a simple webcam, and have it replace other more expensive devices that do the job substantially better, well, I hope I've helped steer you in the right direction. Don't do what I did. Stick with cheaper webcams if that's more your speed, or hey, keep saving up and buy a real camera someday. I think that you'll definitely be much happier in the long run. Okay guys, that about does it for me. Thanks for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you enjoyed it, please consider giving it a thumbs up. Got any questions about the Logitech 4K Pro Webcam or the Brio or whatever? Leave them in the comments section below and I will try and help if I can. A very special thanks to each and every one of my subscribers here on YouTube. You guys rock. And if you aren't subscribed, we would love to have you join the community. There's probably a large subscribe button hanging out somewhere around the edges of the video. There may also possibly be a notification bell that you could click if you wanted to know immediately when new videos are posted to the channel. Allegedly. If you'd like to find me other places on the internet, you can follow me on Twitter at @DDayGuy. I also just launched a new Discord server thingy, which has actually been a whole lot of fun. Although I am definitely still learning the ropes. I am just super thankful for my awesome community who have really helped me get all of that stuff set up. I also stream on Twitch every chance that I get. It's mostly video games, but recently I've started live streaming myself, drawing video game related stuff as well, which is terrifying, especially since I'm pretty new to this whole drawing thing and I'm still pretty much terrible at it. But hey, you gotta practice to get better, right? All the live streaming stuff is always so much more fun for me when I have a bunch of people to hanging out and to chat with. So if you're into it, we'd love to have you stop by and hang out with us. All of my links are available in the description box below, and hopefully some of them have also been popping up down here at the bottom of the screen as well. I'm using a new video editing program, so we'll see, who knows. So once again, just wanted to say thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And hey, one more time, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, maybe subscribe. YouTube will hate me a little bit less. That'd be great. I also just kind of like watching that number go up. All right, seriously though, thanks for watching. I really appreciate it. And hopefully I will catch each and every one of you in the next one.